guys, it's Luke here again. Figured I'd make a Meshcore video going kind of through the app because I've heard various people, including myself, finding different aspects of the app that they didn't know about, or tools that they can use, or just an overall understanding of Meshcore in general. All kind of comes back to the app. So I figured I'd kind of do a basic walkthrough and a basic description of how kind of Meshcore works, just so that there's another point of reference and everyone can kind of be on the same page and help distinguish between Meshtastic and Meshcore. So I have the Meshcore app on a Windows PC. There's a way to get it and just run it as an executable. But this is exactly how it looks, at least on iOS. I assume Android probably looks very similar. So I figured I'd just kind of walk over a brief overview of the differences between Meshcore and Meshtastic. So the big thing with Meshcore is that the meshing happens around repeaters rather than personal nodes. And so terms you're going to hear a lot are like Meshcore repeater and Meshcore companion. And so, generally speaking, companions are the radios that we carry in our pockets, or we have hooked up to our own device, like a T-Deck or a little card like the T1000. So those are kind of the things you chat with, but the real magic happens with the repeater infrastructure. Those of you who are hams, this is very similar to APRS, which also uses repeaters. And kind of the methodology being that, and this is true for APRS too, is that most people's individual radios can't broadcast that far, right? You're either not that high up or you're on the ground in a car or something like that. And so what you do is you put repeaters, which are basically radios that are purely dedicated to doing nothing but hearing a weak signal and repropagating it to be a stronger signal. At the end of the day, what that does is then the repeaters all hear amongst themselves and they do the routing where you want a packet to go. And that's done by each repeater doing advertisements on specific variables. 12 is usually the default hours. Most of mine are set to 3 to make it quicker than that. But once a repeater hears another repeater, it will store, which, you know what, I'll show one aspect of the app here. It will show, it'll keep a track of who it can hear and how well it can hear each other. And that's from the admin portion of going through a repeater. So I'll use Bilyek as the example because it's the one at my house. It's the one I primarily use. And so first what I'm going to do is I'm going to log into the repeater to kind of show you the basics of how it works. So right here, I got my Bilyek repeater. You'll get prompted to do a authentication page, and you'll want to do direct login. So one aspect I should talk about with Meshcore is that there's flood, hops, and direct. And so when you make a direct connection, that's basically point to point. So this is my radio that I'm using, which, by the way, this is a V3 that I have hooked up in my garage via Bluetooth. That's plugged into a USB charger. So that's my home base that I usually use. And so direct basically means that you don't want to rely on a repeater. You just want to go straight to the source. And that's what that does. A flood just means the packet it doesn't have a specific destination. It just says, if you hear me, relay me out to everybody you know. That's usually how adverts work because you want to advertise as far as you can. And then all the hops really is a flood that is tracked. And so in some cases, if you have the packet goes from A to B and you know where all the spots are, you can see the hops in its location. And we'll go over that in a little bit. So first though, we'll log in directly just to kind of, again, show the basics of this. So I'm gonna log in direct, pull up, cool. I'm in admin mode. By the way, you set the admin password when you set up your repeater for that. Right now, if I hit request status, I'll see my battery. The clock's wrong. That tends to happen a lot. How long it's been up, the signal to noise ratio, the noise floor, packet sent. These are all the information that you can get out of a repeater. And in fact, at least on my repeaters, if you don't put a password in, it'll go into guest mode, which will let you see the status of the repeater without necessarily being able to modify anything. But anywho, back to kind of the repeater structure as a whole. So we got the neighbors aspect. So I'm going to go into my Bilyek, and when I click on neighbors, it will give me a map of the repeaters that it hears nearby and how well it can hear them. So this is kind of, in my case, all of these nodes are relatively high up, relatively close to me. And as you can see, I'm getting great connection links, between most of these. you know Honestly, anything above 0 is great. I know that Meshcore and Meshtastic both have very low, it can hear through very high noise, which is remarkable, but anything above 0 is going to be like really, really solid. And so as you can see, I have very solid connections with my high school repeater, the St. Leonard's one, not so much with the Astronomicon because there is a elevation raising in here. And then you can see the other ones are also, pretty powerful. So this is kind of the inner workings of how the repeater system works. This is what the repeater sees. And so if it knows the path that is, good for a node it's trying to reach out to, it will remember that. And I will demonstrate that now by doing a remote login. So I'm going to log into a repeater that I have that is actually not close to me. Now, however, I need to do it to be somewhat close so it can actually hear me. So, why don't we do Pondview Park Repeater? As you can see, there's one hop. If I look at the details of it, you'll see that that hop came through 1B, and I just know off the top of my head, this is the ID of the St. Leonard's repeater. So basically, in order for me to connect to Pondview, the last time I heard the Pondview, it came in through my St. Leonard's 1B repeater. So what I can do is I can try to log in just from that. So what I'll do is I'll go into here. It stores this one hop because it basically says this was a known strong connection, and unless stated otherwise, I'm going to rely on this going forward. So I'll click login. Okay, cool. So right now I'm actually logged into the repeater that is at Pondview, which is about 2-3 miles away from my house, which is not too bad. So from here, I can do a request status on this one. Now, granted, there's a chance it might not. Oh, it came in pretty good. Okay, so got that. Everything's looking good. But as you can see, now that I have logged in, it keeps the hop. Now, what I could do, and this is where pathing is important, and this is where sometimes people can get confused, is sometimes if you try to, this might be a better example. So this one, I'm guessing I probably won't get into the first try because it's 3 hops away, and every hop you do, it gets a little bit weaker, a little bit harder to do. So what'll happen sometimes is someone, and as I suspect, it's probably not going to go through because the mesh changes constantly, and sometimes the hops you had don't necessarily work out to be great. So what you want to do on these things is you want to reset the path. You want to basically say, all right, forget the way you knew how to get there. I want you to flood the nodes and basically say, I want you to find the best way to get to Waldrew Park and then use that. So now we're going to do a flood login to test this. And if we're lucky, okay, here we go. Awesome. So now I'm into the repeater now. If I don't know if it'll show it here, but when we get back, you'll see now Waldrew Park. So instead of 3 hops, it's now 2. And if I go over to the details of that, it'll show me the new path. And so once again, St. Leonard's, and then A2, I know off the top of my head, is the Wilson Park Pool. So that's kind of the whole thing around pathing, is that instead of the meshing happening within the nodes as they do in Meshtastic, the meshing happens on a repeater level, and you can see repeaters store what they can hear. They find the best route and they lock that in. And if that route no longer works, you can just say reset it and go from there and find it again. And so now this, maybe now at noon, this is a better pathway than maybe it was before. So when you try logging into your stuff, make sure it's not on a direct if it's far away. I know sometimes that's thrown me off of being like, why can't I connect to you? Oh, it's because it's still trying to do a direct connection when it really should do a flood. So yeah, so now that it's kind of walked through the app, walked through the principles around how Meshcore works, how repeaters work, how to log into them. Now we can kind of go over the basics of how Meshcore as a whole works. So I'm on my personal node, right? And so what you can do is send an advert out manually from the app. And so you click this and you'll get 3 options. Advert 0 hop, this basically is saying, hey, I just want to hear from anybody who's in my immediate vicinity. Flood means tell everyone on the network. And then advert to clipboard, haven't used it before, not entirely sure. So what I'll do is I will just do a advert flooded route. And so what that basically means is that my node now has been transmitted across the network. And so people who are on the network should see it now. Now, granted, since I'm logged in, I'm not going to see my own thing. But what I do have is I'm logged into my Bill Yeck repeater on my TDEC offline. And so what I will do is I will send an advert through that right now. And then it should pop up whenever on the screen here. So right now, advert is sent. And there you go. Now you see Bill Peckrod repeater just showed up right here. Gives you a time. If you scroll down through the ones that I didn't directly connect to, all these either coming from floods or known hop layers. And so as you can see, we have enough nodes now, especially where I am kind of centralized, is that, I'm hearing adverts all the time, which is awesome. So that's how this stuff works. Now, granted, I think here are people's personal companions that I've heard. So in this case, what I can do is if you want to message a personal node, you can click this, start a conversation. Oh, yeah, I got cute with it. And I get it delivered. You can't see it, but on my phone, I got this thing. So the delivered will give you an idea of whether it got there or not. Now let's move on. So that's for personal nodes, but most of the stuff we do is on the public channel. And there's also some important stuff to learn about how this works, and so you can better understand how Meshcore works as well. So on the public channel, it works like Meshtastic, where every message is a flood. You don't get any confirmations other than your repeating was heard from a repeater. So what you want to do with that is check. You can see when people connect to you, you can actually see the paths they took to get there. So the public channel is actually very important for pathfinding or seeing how well you can hear other people. So I'll just open it up from this morning. You can see all the stuff that we have in the convo. Now here's the trick. So I'm getting Kelly from 5 hops away, KF8 AIT, but I have this setting on that shows this, which is not on by default. But if you long hold onto the message and hit view message path, it will actually show you the list of repeaters it went through. So when KF8 AIT sent this message, it went through his Woodman lanes, then went through this 9E repeater that I don't think I've picked up yet, so it's just marked as unknown. Then it went to Negus, and then that went to Centerville, that went to Billiac, that went to me. So that is how that connection path is made. For another example, like Ridge Runner, he's all the way out in Oxford. So if I look at his message path, so I actually got it from 2 separate paths. This is where Meshcore kind of gets interesting. Is not only did I hear that message straight from my Bill Yeck repeater, but I also heard it straight from the Centerville High School repeater. So it came in from 2 different angles. Now, this one's obviously stronger because it's right by my house, but I still heard it at -5 decibels, which is really, really good. So if I look at this one, you'll see right here, Ridge Runner sends it to the Indian Ridge Relay. And I want to clarify for people, this hop is 36 miles, and it seems to go rather consistently. I know sometimes it comes from the Waldrew Park one. So this is how we're getting it from Ridge Runner. So again, just hold it down long, or not in this one. Long press in the app or on the thing, do message path. You can see how it gets there. So yeah, so that's now how the public channel works. And and I should also mention here, so if I'm like testing for the video, now you're going to see heard, 3 repeats. And so I'm like, okay, who heard me? And so this is how you can tell if you're getting out correctly or not. You, again, hold down the thing, hit heard repeats, and it will say, I got confirmation from St. Leonard that it heard me, which is close. Centerville High School also heard me. And then my Bilgak obviously heard me, granted, at different levels based on distance, which makes sense. One quick thing, we talked about this a little bit, is that nodes at the moment are a 2-byte hexadecimal. And so that basically means that there's 2 digits from A to F. And, looks like while we're here, we got a, Cool. Well, hey, VFW, you'll see yourself in a little bit. Um, and again, if I wanted to see where he was coming from, view message path. Wow, I heard him from three different directions, but they all came from Miamisburg Mound to Centerville Business to Billyak to me from here. And then, yeah, very similar here. So cool. Nice real time was not coordinated, but good that we can get it there. And there we go. Let me just get this up a little bit. All right, so well, that was nice for that. We currently don't have a dedicated channel for our city like Meshtastic does, but that's, you know, so far we don't need it. Maybe we will in the future once we, get more people involved. That's totally, something we'll look at in the forward. So other things, yeah, I kind of glazed over some of this stuff. But yeah, contacts, this is where all your people or repeaters are going to be listed. I don't know why it doesn't separate out repeaters and companion nodes, but you can search up here. So if I wanted to, let's say, message Camo directly, I could type in Camo, find his home companion, and then send him a message, even though haven't been great successful, but this has been a while ago, so maybe it'll work in the future. So what I really mostly also wanted to go over was not only how the app works, contacts in here, channels, these are where your public channels are, and then the map just shows you where the GPS locations are. Where I think the real cool stuff about Meshcore is in the tools that are available to us. And so if you click on these three dots, you'll see all the different things you can do. You can add a contact, add a channel, discover contacts. I should say the discover contacts actually just lists your last, most recent node hearing. It, pretty much will look the same as your regular contacts, unless you're manually texting a bunch of people all the time, stuff like that. So there's where that one is. Add contact. This is where you can add someone public key. And one quick thing I'd like to show people for ease of use in the future is if you go to the Meshcore map, this is how I usually add nodes just because it's the easiest, is that if someone's node is on here and you haven't seen an advert for it, but you want it stored just in case it ever does, then what you can do, and just for the heck of it, I'll just grab a random repeater that I don't normally have in here. Definitely haven't used this one before. If it should open up now. So normally when you click this, a little pop-up shows. I'm not sure if maybe I need to refresh the page. That's very odd. Let's try this one more time. All right, let's just, we'll add someone super duper random. I do not know why this isn't working. Well, that's frustrating. Anyway, what's supposed to happen is when you click this, it'll show a little info bubble. There's a copy link to clipboard, and then you can go into the actual Meshcore app and then hit import from clipboard link. I don't know why the website's not doing it right now, but that's how you do it. So there's that tool. I think the same thing applies to channels. I haven't actually used this one yet. My contact code, pretty straightforward. You get a QR code, someone can pull up the app on their phone, scan it, boom, you got it. Not that useful, but still handy. Then we got the internet map, which is the same as the map down here, but tools. This is where I think you really want to get into the fun stuff. So I'm going to go through kind of what all this stuff means and how you can use it to better set your nodes, set placement, know where your coverage is, stuff like that. So from top to bottom, trace path manual. So I don't use these a ton. It's basically the equivalent of saying like, I want to see if like route A, B, C is working. And so you put in the paths manually. Usually what I do, if I ever do it, I use a map. And so this would be where you want to run in. And then the thing is, you have to be in range of all the repeaters, and you also have to be able to transmit and hear from them at the same level. So I don't find this super duper helpful. It's really good for just making sure that like, you can get a loop between personal nodes, but these two I don't use a ton. The two that I use the most are antenna coverage and line of sight. So I'll go over antenna coverage first. So this map is amazing for me. and anyone who wants to put up repeaters, because what you can do is at any point you can find a place on the map, and then it has top topography data on the back of it. And so if you just hold down your finger, or in my case the mouse button, it will give you a coverage area of how far you can be expected to be heard from any given point. So this point, not super great. What you can do is you can do layer settings. This lets you change how high you're going to have the antenna up. So in my case, let's say I want to put it up 30 feet. Keep in mind, these are in meters. So I'm going to put 10 feet because 10 feet's about 30 meters. Or, oh, I'm sorry. 30 feet is about 10 meters. Ah. So if I do that, it'll reload the coverage and give you if it expands at all. And sometimes it does, but sometimes, okay, so we got a little bit more by raising it up here. You can see kind of the red being the potential coverage. But this part of Kettering is actually kind of in a bit of a valley, not super great. But one thing you can do is I'm going to remove this one, get rid of you. You can hit this little repeater button down here, and it'll list all the repeaters that you have heard on the map. And so what you can do, so like, for example, I'll put Kettering Central. I purposely put this one on a super high point so that it got a very, very wide range of coverage. So even though my original point was like right down here, my A point, that didn't get a lot of coverage, even going up like a mile, now if I zoom out, you can see much, much, much higher coverage. And again, this is on the default. This actually is a node that's probably a good 30 feet up. So again, I'm going to adjust it to 10. And you'll see the coverage should expand a little bit. Yeah, so now you're seeing, I think, more of a southern coverage over here. So this is why, topography and using this tool are crucial to making sure that the nodes all connect with each other. So that can help you if you want to think about potential places to put it. I oftentimes use a topography map and just try to cross-reference and see where some good spots are. So, and you can, click multiple. So if you want to say, hey, what's in the, what is my, like, let's use my just neighborhood as an example. What does it look like for all my repeaters at once? What's my coverage look like? And so you do them all, you're going to wait a little bit. And yeah, there's clearly huge overlap in a lot of it. And yeah, you can turn them on and off as needed. You can adjust the layers, all those sorts of things. So super good tool here. Don't use this one as much, but you can. I did this at first when I was doing placements around my immediate vicinity. And so the one time I used this is I wanted to see if my Astronomicon would reach my house. And so what I did was I roughly put it around where my house is. And when you do that, it'll show you here's where the Astronomicon would be, and here's where my house would be. And these are, again, on the defaults of 5 feet or 5 meters. And based on this, it would not, if I just had these each at 5, this elevation up here, which, is right where the high school is, which is why I put one there, it would probably block it. You might get some fringe in the green, but the red is kind of the where you want it to go. Now, if you go, if I can find, whoops. There should be a way, the last time I did this, there was a way to adjust this so that you could actually put heights on it. And so if I do this and I do this, it should bring this up. I should be able to. Here we go. You hit the little gear. And so in this case, what I'll do is I'll say, okay, actually, what if I put both of these 10 meters up? What would happen? Now you can see better line of sight, still a good chunk of it getting blocked, but I mean, and you see that in my, DB report I showed you earlier where I'm getting a signal, just not super great because, part of it's blocked. So this is great if you want to see if like you're going to make it out. So I know for some people, if you're like in a valley, you want to see if you can raise it, if that'll get you to certain points or certain repeaters. This is a huge, great tool for that. And yeah, other than that, the other few tools on here are just the RX log. You can see, oh yeah, you can, even see, since these are in public channels, you'll see the messages. But if you were to message someone directly, it does a hash and you don't actually see the message because it's encrypted. Discover nearby nodes. This is also really, really handy. In my case, I'm static, so it's not a huge deal. But if I click discover repeaters, I'm going to see all the ones that are recognizable. Bilyak, obviously, St. Leonard's, Centerville Business. It comes and goes. If I waited a minute, came back, I'd probably get different ones. But this is really good for people who are trying to find if they have coverage in their area, or trying to find where their antenna might be good to place by running this discovery to see, hey, can I actually hear stuff. I use this a lot to find gap areas, so that if I have like two barely weaker signals, I can put one right between them and it'll make all three stronger. And finally, this one still handy but kind of nice, not super useful, but the noise floor. And I have a pretty big antenna on it, so my noise floor is super low, which I'm really happy about. But if I put the little rubber duck one, this noise floor goes up because it's not as good. This is kind of more of like a little neato thing than anything, but good to know if you're trying to figure out what the noise floor is on your node. You can also get this, by the way, from your repeater. Also, one other fun fact, if you log in with the admin password and then don't use it for future ones, it will remember that you had it, and so you don't have to type it in, which is really cool. And if, I go to here, I believe it has a noise floor on here. Maybe not. I could be wrong. Well, I mean, I guess you won't get a real-time one, but you can still get, what your current one is if you just do a request on the status, and you can see, so it's -116. So, and with that, I think that, battery, by the way, if you click it, it'll show you the voltage. So here's a fun little thing. And I really think that's probably most of it. So I hope this video is informative. I hope it shows you things in the app you didn't know about. And if there's any questions, let me know.